If you are interested in history, this is where you need to go.
The history this place tells, you always find something that speaks to you.
And we're really telling those stories in a way that you can relate to it today.
We have different historic and cultural sites, museums, theaters, art galleries. It's really meant to be family-friendly, very engaging.
Welcome, welcome. Beautiful area out here.
Fun way to spend a weekend, especially traveling around the Finger Lakes, so you can hit so many different wineries and breweries.
It's called Orabella.
It's got listed a couple times as the best wine destination in the U.S. and it's right here in your backyard.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Rachel, and welcome to Cayuga County. In the next several minutes, we'll check out just some of what there is to discover in a county that encompasses 700 square miles from the shoreline of Lake Ontario to the heart of the Finger Lakes region. This is the perfect place to start any visit, the New York State Equal Rights Heritage Center and Auburn Visitor Center. It sits right downtown. So, let's go exploring. Inside, you'll find plenty of tourist information, a taste of New York shop, plus historical videos and exhibits, many of which are hands-on, about the people and places that not only shaped this area, but our entire nation.
Auburn's history is extremely rife, especially with the equal rights movement when you're talking about the abolition of slavery, the women's rights movement, and also human rights movement as well. I think it's a place that you can kind of still feel that energy, where it's people who are advocates and allies, really who want to champion being a voice for the voiceless, and also paving the way for future generations when you're talking about equality movements.
So we have this amazing entire region, the Finger Lakes, and Cayuga County being a small part of it. We have so many of the same things to offer: the beautiful scenery, the lakes, the wineries, the great craft brew industry. But what differentiates the Cayuga County is our history. The Cayuga County has deep roots in history that you see some of it in the region, but there are such strong personalities that are right here that have such strong roots in our country and the history, and things are happening now that's our shining light.
Auburn is nicknamed history's hometown, and for good reason. There's so much that happened here. In its early days, it was the center of industry and development because of its central location and railroad lines. Auburn was also home to some well-known people, like this woman over my shoulder, possibly the most famous of them all.
Harriet Tubman has a lot of names that people call her. Called her an activist, called her an abolitionist, called her a philanthropist, called her a nurse. She's just a woman that encompasses all of life.
For more than 3 decades, Reverend Paul Carter has been part of the team keeping Harriet Tubman's story alive. He's part of the organization that cares for this special property.
Not many people know of who she was, and for someone who was willing to dedicate her life to the betterment of other people, a person who was willing to give all that she had to make sure that other people were better off than she was.
Tubman is best known for escaping slavery and then helping her family and hundreds of others do the same on the Underground Railroad. She's the only woman of color to lead armed troops into battle during the Civil War. She'd eventually spend more than 50 years of her adult life living in Cayuga County.
This is Harriet's house for 32 years. She helped make these bricks. These are the original bricks.
Tubman's property became a National Historic Park in 2017. Kim Seswick is the park ranger there. She led us on a tour during the fall.
You can step up on the porch and take a look through the front doors because you'll be able to see the floors in there. We were very, very lucky that there were almost no renovations on the inside.
Across the property, you'll see this white building.
This house here was the home for the aged.
Officially opening in 1908 to provide care for the elderly and sick in Auburn. Reverend Carter says it's another way Tubman helped others in her community. It's believed to have been the first of its kind exclusively for African Americans anywhere in America.
To some extent, she was an ordinary woman who did extraordinary things.
Michelle Jones Galvin is a proud descendant of Harriet Tubman. She frequently visits the home and property in Auburn. It's a very personal journey for her, knowing her Aunt Harriet once would walk these grounds, sit on her front porch, and overlook the 32 acres that she, a former slave, owned.
So when you walk onto the property, it's almost like walking into a museum. You're kind of transported back into history. And if you know anything about her, you're wondering to yourself, oh, she probably was over there quite a bit tending to her vegetables. She was probably over there picking apples for an apple pie that she might make, or an apple cobbler. It really brings you more in touch with her as a person. So to be able to walk where she walked, and to be able to go through the grounds and look at all of the buildings that were there when she owned that property is very special.
She found me reaching for her hand, trying to swim while I was sinking.
Tubman died in 1913. She's buried nearby at Fort Hill Cemetery. She left her property to the AME Zion Church in Auburn. This church building on Parker Street is where Tubman attended services. The congregation she was part of long ago moved to this church on Franklin Street.
Well, Harriet Tubman was a very devout woman. Her faith was a main part of what gave her strength in order to make that trek from enslavement into freedom.
Pastor Paris Price leads the church that Tubman was a part of in her day. This building isn't the actual one Tubman worshiped in, but some of her descendants are still part of the congregation. One of them brought this intricate wood carving and this stool back from a trip to Africa. You can find it on display at the church. Pastor Price says they frequently welcome visitors looking to somehow connect to Harriet.
The name of Harriet Tubman just conjures up an indomitable spirit, a spirit of strength, courage, a spirit of giving, a spirit of selflessness.
How do we keep her courage and her bravery and her lessons going?
I think it's about individual responsibility. She was individually responsible for her work, and I think we need to do a little bit more of that. She would encourage us, one, to make sure that we're in touch with our gifts. Everyone is given a gift, and whether that gift is music, whether that gift is science, whether that gift is athletics, whatever it is that's been bestowed upon you as your personal gift, make sure that you share that with others in whatever capacity that you can.
I believe one of the messages that she would say is that we have to be willing to overlook our color. We have to be willing to overlook where we've come from and look towards where we need to go. And the only way that we can get there is if we all pull together to do it.
Glory, hallelujah.
Harriet Tubman lives about a mile down South Street. She would frequent this route because of her close relationships with the people that lived here. William Seward was governor of New York, U.S. Senator, and Secretary of State for Presidents Lincoln and Johnson. He lived in this home with his wife Frances, who was good friends with Harriet Tubman.
And they both worked together to help slaves escape to freedom. So this house was used as a stop on the Underground Railroad, something that Seward himself fully supported, but it was really orchestrated and organized by his wife Frances.
Look at this exhibit. One side of the room tells the story of the Sewards, the other, Harriet. It meets in the middle, showing how the two met and worked together. The other rooms and collections here will give you a unique experience, seeing the 19th century through the eyes of the Seward family.
So this is the library, and we have the family's original collection of books, over 3,000 books that they owned, again, spanning all 4 generations of the family.
The ones inside this cabinet were owned by the Seward's daughter, Fanny.
And she is a very fascinating young woman. She wanted to be a writer at a very early age, and Seward and his wife Frances fully supported that. She didn't want to follow the traditional route of a woman of that time period just getting married, having kids, you know, that traditional story. She wanted to be a writer, she wanted to have a career. And so Seward and his wife actually put aside money in a trust for her so that she would be able to focus on her career, focus on her writing, and never have to worry about needing to get married for financial stability. So that's really remarkable.
They were a family like well ahead of their time, I feel like.
Yes, for sure.
That's just one of the many stories of another family who not only made a name for themselves and a difference for our country, but called Auburn home.
And we're really telling those stories in a way that you can relate to it today. You can relate to their motivations, their fears, their passions, and that's how we're presenting history here. We try to always bridge the gap between what they were seeing and dealing with throughout their careers and lives and what people are doing today. So you can really draw those parallels between the two eras. And I think that makes it very accessible and interesting to everyone.
Coming up, we'll learn about some of the other famous people from this area. But as we go to break, here's a trivia question for you. Which U.S. president was born in the southern part of Cayuga County, grew up there, and eventually married his first wife in the village of Moravia? The answer, later in the show.
This majestic home tells the story of another man who left a mark on our world. The Willard Case Mansion on Genesee Street in Auburn is now the Cayuga Museum of History and Art. It was once home to Theodore Case, who right here in Auburn came up with the process of adding sound to film strips.
So actually this right here is one of the earliest sound film recording devices. It actually doesn't record any images. These bulbs right here, what they do is they use infrared light to convert sound waves into light waves. Now, that goes directly onto a film strip, so when we're talking about synchronized sound film, we're talking about, if anyone's done anything with iMovie or anything like that, if you see the little wavy lines on the side of a film strip, that's the sound directly there. And back then, you're of course working with a real film strip. So that bulb is using light to turn sound waves into light waves and then give them a physical manifestation on a film strip.
Sounds complicated, but the exhibit inside the Cayuga Museum makes it easy to understand. You can also learn about Case's life, his family, and his successful work with movie production and movie tone news. At the back of his home, you can check out the Case Research Lab, the actual spot sound on film was created. Further south in Cayuga County, the Howland Stone Store Museum tells the story of the Sherwood Equal Rights Historic District. Inside, you'll find exhibits and memorabilia relating to residents who fought for the abolition of slavery, voting rights for women, and education for all. Emily Howland led the way.
And her father was a successful storekeeper, so they had a little bit of discretionary income, and as Quakers, she was very active in both the suffrage and the abolitionist movement. We think some of these issues are brand new and we haven't thought about them, but in fact that all people who care about those issues today are really standing on the shoulders of some pretty active and dedicated people from the past. And we can learn from some of them, perhaps about how better to keep the struggle going.
Emily lived to be 101 years old, long enough to see her efforts be successful when she and other women voted in the 1920 presidential election. She's scheduled to be inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame later this year.
Another special place to learn about Cayuga County's history is from the water. We're here on Owasco Lake, which is in the county. Cayuga Lake is technically not in the county, but the eastern shoreline is, and you can learn some fascinating facts right on the shoreline.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Welcome, welcome. Guys ready to get out for a little boat ride?
Captain Matt grew up in Aurora right on the lake and moved back home about a decade ago. He shares local history, like the story of this old steam mill, with passengers from near and far. The ones on this tour are from California and Texas.
So the stone building hiding behind the trees up here is E.B. Morgan's house. And so the Morgan family showed up here in the late 1700s, I believe, very end of the 1700s. I think E.B. was born very early 1800s, 1805, 1806, somewhere in there. His father started a mercantile, started a store here in the village.
What a perfect way to kick back, relax, and learn about the people and places that made this area what it is today. And just look at how beautiful it is out on the water. Captain Matt also offers a wine tour and an evening sunset tour.
Pleasure meeting you guys. Come and visit again.
Coming up, wineries, breweries, delicious food, and sweet treats. We'll see what's on the menu for foodies in Cayuga County. In the 1800s, over 90% of Cayuga County's population worked in agriculture. Today, that number is less than 2%. But even so, it's the #1 county in New York State for producing corn, and the second highest milk-producing county. The Ward O'Hara Agricultural and Country Living Museum near Auburn's Emerson Park is the spot to learn all about it.
Wineries help shape the agricultural landscape of Cayuga County. 11 of them call this area home. I stopped by Long Point Winery on the east side of Cayuga Lake during their harvesting season.
On scenic Route 90 in Aurora, you'll find more than 70 acres of vines filled with wine grapes.
Chardonnay, Cabernet Franc, Pinot Gris, and Riesling. So this is our Cabernet Franc.
That's what owner Gary Barletta harvests every fall.
We're picking our Chardonnay, which was the first grapevine that we planted here back in 1999.
He takes these lugs with nearly 30 pounds of grapes and dumps them into a machine that will de-stem, crush, and press the berries. This process is standard practice, but there's a couple things that make this spot special: the people and the location.
I was an amateur winemaker, and then it was just always been a dream of mine to have a commercial winery. So I found this location, and I'm kind of like living a dream. I mean, it's a labor of love. So is it hard work? Absolutely. But if you like what you're doing, you never worked a day in your life.
This vineyard sits next to the longest of the Finger Lakes. The low elevation and the steep slopes running to the shore help create a unique microclimate. This protects the grapes from frost, allowing them to fully ripen so you can enjoy the taste.
It's called Orabella because it means golden beauty in Italian.
And enjoy the experience from the sunny summertime to the fall harvest. I mean, just look at this view.
I think the beautiful view of Cayuga Lake, I think you can see probably like 1/3 of the lake from here. We have like 21, 22 wines on our menu. And on the weekends, my wife Rosemary actually runs a deli with some gourmet sandwiches, so they can get a sandwich, glass of wine, bottle of wine, and enjoy their afternoon.
Tasting, seeing, and discovering an award-winning passion that'll leave you with an unforgettable experience.
We got some recognition. We got ourselves on the map, and I think it's got listed a couple times as the best wine destination in the U.S. It's right here in your backyard.
In addition to Long Point, there are 10 other wineries spread all throughout Cayuga County. There are also a couple of cideries to visit and a few craft breweries, including this one, Prison City Brewing. Between their pub on State Street in downtown Auburn and their nearby North Street Urban Farm, they're always brewing up lots of local beers. But co-owner Mark Schultz says it's the atmosphere here that helps set them apart.
It comes down to the staff, like the people that we employ, talking to the customers and engaging them on what kind of beer styles do you like, and do we brew a style that's like, you know, a traditional American light lager, which we do, or are you there because you're a hophead and you want an IPA, Or are you looking for a big pastry imperial stout that's just loaded with adjuncts?
I sampled the Mass Riot, an IPA with a punch of hazy citrus. And for those with a sweet tooth, the Finger Lakes Sweet Treat Trail is a must-do. Make stops at almost 24 places throughout the county. Farmers markets, bakeries, ice cream shops, cafes, and more.
These are all local organizations, small stores that produce things with local ingredients.
You can visit the trail between May and December of each year, and even get your tasty tour pass stamped for a chance to win prizes. Don't go anywhere. I'll share a few other fun things to see and do. Here's another look at our trivia question. The answer is coming your way right after this.
We've talked a lot about Cayuga County's history and the sites that helped share its stories. Earlier, we asked you a trivia question. Which U.S. president was born in the southern part of Cayuga County, grew up there, and eventually married his first wife in the village of Moravia? It's Millard Fillmore, who served as the 13th president of the United States. Born in 1800 in what's now Summerhill, he wed his first wife Abigail in Moravia in 1826. Today, there's a historical marker at the site of his birth. And now, here's a few more ideas of things to see and do in Cayuga County.
Sports fans can catch a double-days game at Auburn's Falcon Park or some of the best racing around at Weed Sports Speedway. Visit the Willard Memorial Chapel in Auburn, believed to be the only complete and unaltered Tiffany Chapel known to exist anywhere. Cayuga County has more freshwater coastline than any other county in New York, and plenty of ways to enjoy the water, including boating and fishing. I used to go camping all the time when I was younger, and Fairhaven Beach State Park was always on my list. It's right on Lake Ontario. Kids and adults can get creative at the Schweinfurth Art Center in Auburn. They offer different art exhibits throughout the year. There's also workspaces for local artists like these quilters, and a variety of hands-on classes and special programs for artists of all abilities.
You can come in here and look at any of the beautiful artworks on the wall, but you can also connect to it at a really visceral level by learning how it is created through that direct process. So it's about cultivating appreciation, cultivating knowledge.
A great place for the whole family. And how about this? You can catch a show at the Rev Theater Company or Auburn Public Theater, or a movie at the Finger Lakes Drive-In. Kids of all ages will enjoy a summer day in 16th century England at the Sterling Renaissance Festival. And for a thrill unlike any other, check out Cayuga County from above when you go for a jump with Skydive Central New York, based in Weedsport.
I hope you'll take some time to explore Cayuga County. It's filled with history, there's so much to learn, plus there's plenty of ways to have some fun. I'm Lindsay Rachel, thanks for watching.